Oh, shoot. All right, cool. Cool. Hey, guys, how's it going, man? It's Bryan, your family neighborhood viewer. And, sorry, dude. Hang on a sec. Yeah. Rock and roll. All right, cool. And today we got a really good show, man. Really cool. We got the Rolling Stones, man. Their very first album. Really cool album. Pivotal album, man. Seriously, most rock and roll music derives from this album right here. So we're going to talk about this, man. So stay tuned. All right, cool. Rolling Stones. Boy, I'm going to try to nail this down very quickly. So we'll first do a little album showcase. All right, really cool album. Really neat photo. At the time this album came out, the Beatles had already hit big time. So they were kind of doing a little bit photo kind of album of the Beatles kind of thing, you know. Really good shot of the group, though. The original debut had a photograph that came with it. It was really cool. Same thing as the album cover. Unfortunately, I don't have the photo, which is probably a couple $100 if I did. But even still, I mean, you know, debut album. It's not in the best of shape, but it's still a pretty cool copy. You know, back cover with that, really cool. And then this whole maroon London label. Look at that. Plays really good, dude. Plays really good. All right, last review I did, man. We were talking about John Mayall, Alexis Korner, all those guys. How Alexis Korner and Cyril Davies opened a club up. They opened several clubs, but anyway. But the main club that was going on was the Ealing Club. That's when blues music in England really started hitting big. That's when everybody was coming down. You had, you know, again, pretty much all the cream came down. You had John McLaughlin, the great jazz guy, came down. You had people of Fleetwood Mac. I mean, you know, these guys, John Mayall, Alexis Korner, Cyril Davies, Graham Bond, they kind of took the blues from American blues bands. I mean, American blues artists like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, people like that, and took that and incorporated because they were gaga for the music. It was so different. It was earthy and funky and real. Of course, you know, black gospel, black blues is always earthy, funky, and real. Even the black church, man, cool stuff, man. You know, so when the club opened, all these people that loved that kind of music were coming down and getting into that kind of thing. So you have Alexis Korner with Blues Incorporated in the Ealing Club, okay? At the Ealing Club, it attracted the people. Well, one of them was Bryan Jones, who was a wild dude. He kind of fathered a couple of illegitimate children, and he had to go to Scandinavia, and he was an amazing musician. He could play a multitude of instruments. An amazing guy. If he had lived, God only knows what this man would have done as far as a solo career. But anyway, I digress. But he came down and started at the Ealing Club, and so impressed Alexis Korner that he got in there and started playing with Alexis Korner. His main thing was slide guitar. He would play under the name of Elmo Lewis. And when when Keith Richards saw him up there, he heard that name. He thought it was a black guy up there playing. It was this white British kid playing the slide guitar. He blew his mind. But so Bryan Jones joined Alexis Korner and Blues Incorporated. So that, and Charlie Watts too. Charlie Watts was playing with a variety of different kind of groups there. You know, they kind of shuffle around groups. But so he was playing too there at the Ealing Club. Anyway, so that's how those two got there. So anyway, so Bryan Jones was at the Ealing Club with Blues Incorporated. All right. Meantime, you have Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, who were born in like Dartford, Kent, and they were pretty much born almost the same year. I think it was 43. I think they're a few months apart. I think actually Mick Jagger's older than Keith Richards by a few months. But anyway, so they knew each other from childhood. But they had lost touch with each other for a few years. I think like 10 years or so, or 8, 9 years. Because Mick Jagger went to economic school and Keith Richards went to art school, and so they separated. But one day, when they were older, I think it must have been, 16, 17, something like they were on a train platform getting a train to London, and they caught up with each other after so many years. And Keith Richards saw Mick Jagger say, "Hey, how you doing, mate?" and all that, And then he saw the records he had, because Mick Jagger had apparently Muddy Waters and he had Chuck Berry. And when Keith Richards saw Chuck Berry, because that was his hero, man. I mean, he based his whole guitar playing on Chuck Berry and the blues, but Chicago blues. But anyway, so that just freaked him out. So they got together and hooked up, and they had a mutual friend in Dick Taylor. Dick Taylor played guitar with Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger and him jammed at his apartment, at Taylor's apartment. And Keith Richards knew Dick Taylor, too. So they all kind of met and jammed at Dick Taylor's apartment. And then kind of did an ad hoc group called Boy Blue and the Blues Boys. I think that's what the name was. There you go. So he had that started. So in the meantime, so the Blues Boys saw an ad and for the Ealing Club, and it was talking about Alexis Korner's Blues Incorporated. Well, that just, yeah, let's go there. They were blown away. Like I said, that's when they saw Charlie Watts was drumming on stage. Keith Richards thought there was like a black guy playing a slide, and it was Bryan Jones, man. So after they saw that, they went and made a tape, okay? So they made a tape, sent it to Alexis Korner. Alexis Korner was really impressed. He introduced the band to Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and all that, and the guys, and Dick Taylor and all that. And so they started playing with Blues Incorporated. So after that happened, so we had Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and all of them playing, okay? By the time that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards had joined Blues Incorporated, Bryan Jones had already quit and was wanting to do his own group. At the time, Mick Jagger was becoming the de facto lead singer of Blues Incorporated. I think by January 62 or something like that, in 62, he was definitely the de facto singer. So there started an axis of groups. Bryan Jones wanted to do his own group. And so obviously Alexis Korner, they were still friends. They didn't care. But anyway, so Bryan Jones immediately put an ad in the paper, I think it was. First of all, Ian Stewart, which Ian Stewart had been there from the beginning. He had been playing around that, and knew these guys and everything too. So Ian Stewart right off the bat played. He was about a long time Rolling Stone roadie and keyboard player for them, played along one of them big session guys. They were kind of an ad hoc group. And in fact, they went on and substituted for many times for Alexis Korner because they kind of became their own thing. It was like the Bryan Joneses kind of group. So they were doing there's two different versions. Either Keith Richards swears that it was, they weren't, that Bryan Jones was on the phone with, I think, the Jazz Trad paper, one of the jazz papers, and had asked what was the name of the group. There's also an account of it that he was trying to book a venue and was asked for the name of the group. But anyway, the bottom line is there was a Muddy Waters album there on the floor there at the place they're staying. He looked at the track 5 as Rolling Stone Blues, and so he called it the Rolling Stones. So that's where Rolling Stones got the name from, Muddy Waters song. But and it was done over the phone very quickly by Bryan Jones. So he actually named the group and he started the group. The Rolling Stones officially debuted as a band, I think it was July of 62, and it was actually Mick Avery who was on drums at the time, because Charlie Watts had a day job, and he did not want to leave his day job, because he was actually making a decent wage, and, drummers, and these groups came and went. He played for ad hoc, this group and that group. But anyway, he did finally make a commitment to the Rolling Stones, which turned out to be a pretty good gig. But anyway, so they had Charlie Watts came in. Mick Avery, of course, went on to the Kinks, one of my absolute favorite groups of all time. Good God, check out their catalog. You've got to. Anyway, so that happened. So that's where basically the Rolling Stones came from, that conglomerate of just mix of this and that going on. But anyway, they got at the time when they finally came together, they got a 8-month residency at the Crawdaddy Hotel. Well, it's a Crawdaddy Club at a hotel, and it was there that that Andrew Loog Oldham saw him. Andrew Loog Oldham is quite a character, but he produced albums never produced before, so he wasn't no George Martin, but he got a scruffy, cool sound from them. He did really pretty good job. And not like anything, learned as he went. But But he was 19 years old when he took these guys under wing. He was younger than they were at the time, or maybe 17. But he was a really young guy. So he became their Svengali, so to speak. He had been kind of a publicist in Brian Epstein's world, of music world, and he saw the Beatles get hit. He saw the Beatles when they hit big, and he wanted so desperately to have that. He knew he could do something like that, but he just didn't know with what. And when he saw the Rolling Stones playing at the Crawdaddy, he knew he'd found his group, and he knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted these guys to be like the bad boy counterpoint to the Beatles. And, the Beatles were, as everybody knows, John Lennon had his issues, bless his heart. And, they weren't, they weren't squeaky clean, as nobody really is. But, but entertainment-wise, they were presented as the lovable mop tops. And then you had the Rolling Stones, and he put an ad out, say, who would want to date a Rolling Stone? It is funny. He kind of puffed up that image a little bit. And Mick Jagger says, my gosh, we really weren't bad at all. Nothing like that. He said, we were just kids, and they just loved the blues music, and they just wanted to play music. But Jagger was an amazing showman. I mean, when he took the stage, it was electric. You had Keith Richards doing his cool thing in the back, and then Brian Jones was doing his cool thing in the back, and then but Mick Jagger was the focal point, and he was an amazing frontman. And the way Mick Jagger, singers come and go. There's a lot of great singers. There's singers that do things. Mick Jagger did something that's unbelievable. He was able to take all this music, the Chicago blues and this Southern blues and stuff like that, and actually incorporate that dialect and that Southern, not mannerisms, but a lot of that, the spirit of that, the soul of that. He got into those songs the way very few people did at that time. Early Mick Jagger is ferocious, man. I mean, his singing is just on Can I Get a Witness when he goes into that early in the morning. I mean, he gets that like oh my gosh! You think, where did he get that at? This scrawny British kid, but amazing. He incorporates that dialect. In fact, he sings that dialect amazingly. Remember, kind of like Mark Twain. Mark Twain got his big literary development was that he wrote the way people talked. Before it was like proper English and this and thou and all that. But when he wrote Huckleberry Finn and those things, he wrote the dialects of that time. The kids spoke the way the kid, the folks spoke the way they spoke. It was amazing. Jagger to take all, some of that mannerisms, American mannerisms and mannerisms in the black community and mannerisms in just the Southern community, and incorporate that into his speech and the way he sang. It's like me trying to sing British. That's hard to do, and he does it, and he's amazing. And it's not parody. You really feel it. He really feels that. And I mean, look, the very first track, Not Fade Away, and I'm not trying to digress in the story a bit, but it illustrates perfectly what I'm talking about. Buddy Holly's Not Fade Away. I freaking love Buddy Holly. To me, first alternative rocker, without a doubt. Whiz in the studio. But Not Fade Away, the way it's done, when Buddy Holly sings it, it's like a guy who's innocent, who's never had a date, and he's just hoping that girls, I want a real love. It's like you get that innocent, this is my first love, and I want it to be Not Fade Away. The way Jagger sings it is like, I want this to be my love because I've been hurt, and I know that pain, and I am not going to let you hurt me like that again. So either tell me that's going to be, I want to give your love to me. I want a love that lasts more than one day, not fade away. He sings it like he's like gut-wrenching, like I've been hurt. I know that feeling, like I'm not going through that again. I want something real. That's what you get the difference. Just right there, that song. That's exactly the difference between what Jagger does and what the blues does. Because the blues is hardcore, man. I mean, that's hardcore stuff. That's soul stuff, and that's gut-wrenching. And they do that on here. These skinny... these scrawny white kids from Britain, and they do that. Nobody was making albums like this, man. Nobody. So Andrew Lee Golden took him under his wing and produced this first album. Well, their first single was "Come On," a Chuck Berry number, which they kind of sped up a little bit. It's kind of a little hyped up. It was more poppy. they kind of disowned it a little bit, but that got them into the British top 30, something like that, thereabouts. And then they did a second hit, which was, well, I'll tell the story. Andrew Luke Oldham was getting kind of depressed a little bit with them. They were a great live band, a killer live band. They could do this kind of stuff, blues stuff, but Jagger and Richards weren't songwriters. They were not songwriters. So he got kind of disappointed, and he said he didn't know what to do with them. He said he needed them to write their own songs. So as he was coming to the studio, he saw John Lennon and Paul McCartney getting into a car. And they saw him, they hailed him over and said, "Hey, what's up, mate?" Because they all knew each other. They all knew each other. And he told him, said, he kind of told him this dilemma. He said, "I need a song," but he said, "They don't have an original." He said, John Lennon said, "You know what? I've got something for you." He said, "Hang on, let me. They went back to the studio, and he showed them how to play "I Want to Be Your Man," the Ringo Starr showcase. But Ringo did a version of it too. I love Ringo's version, probably better than Stones. But anyway, so the Stones recorded "I Want to Be Your Man," and it became a British top 15 hit. It became a major hit. All right, and so that set the stage for their. Well, they did another single too, "Not Fade Away." Like I said, "Not Fade Away" was actually a huge British hit. I think it went number 1, at least top 10. And then in America, it went to almost scraped the top 50. So it was really their biggest hit single over here at the time. So they had 3 hit singles in Britain, and they had a pretty decent sized hit here in America. So they started, doing an American tour, and also too the Beatles hit. Okay, that was, again, remember the Beatles hit. So the British invasion was on, and the Stones are actually one of the later ones to make it, because remember the Stones were hardcore R&B blues. They did Chuck Berry and stuff, but their main stuff was that kind of hardcore stuff, and that was not, that was kind of considered a little sexually suggestive and stuff like that. They were quote unquote R&B records, or they used to call them race records back in the day. But they were a little bit, a little more earthier, a little more, so not exactly the ready for conservative white 50s 60s America at the time. That's why Pat Boone was so important, because he kind of introduced a lot of Little Richard and Fats Domino and stuff like that wouldn't have gotten played otherwise. Again, Elvis Presley, extremely important, because he was a white guy that could sing the blues, just like these dudes, okay? So you had that kind of thing going on, a merge of cultures and a merge of cultures and a merge of musical ideas, and that's what a lot of it spurred rock and roll too as well. So Andrew Lee Goldman, once they had a hit with "I Want to Be Your Man," he suppose the story is he locked Mick Jagger and Keith Richards in the kitchen where they were recording at, or where they were staying at, and told them, "You're not coming out until you write a song." And they did. Oh my gosh. The song they wrote is "Tell Me." Now, if you don't know "Tell Me," that's the very first Jagger Richards song. Wow. Listen to "Tell Me," and then you listen to the very first Lennon McCartney song, "Love Me Do," and you tell me who wins the battle on that one. There ain't no doubt about it. "Tell Me" is an incredible song. I mean, the way it starts out, the Charlie Watts is thumping drum percussion on that. I mean, oh my gosh. And then the chorus, I'm like, whoa. That right there should have told everyone, these cats are for real, man. They've got something going on. Big time. But anyway, and that's on this album too. One of the big highlights on this album is the Jagger Richards song. There's a couple of songs too. They do under their pseudonym Nanker Felge. A Nanker or Nankies in Britain is kind of like slang for kind of like a Ken or Karen here in America. Someone who thinks they speak for an authority figure and they really don't. And, they're always going to call the cops or something or blah 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 whatever. Like, so that's kind of what that is. A Nanky is a little guy who wants to be a big guy. But anyway, and then Felge is for Jimmy Felge, who when Dick Taylor and Mick Jagger on the shared apartment, whatever, flat, Jimmy Felge was in there too. He was a painter and a friend of theirs, so they do this like little nod wink to him. So it's kind of cool. A little side note. So they do a couple things under that pseudonym, which Little by Little is also under that pseudonym, which is also a really good track. I think that's an underrated track of theirs. I like Little by Little. I think Gene Pitney is on that too. Gene Pitney and Phil Spector also contributed to that track. Gene Pitney just happened to be in the studio with Phil Spector, and they also did Now I Got a Witness, the instrumental that's singing. That's the one kind of on this, but it's still a decent track. I mean, it's a good little, cute little instrumental, and it highlights every single member. And Bill Wyman's great, and Richard's on there, and Mick Jagger really great on the track. But that's the 1 week track. It's the track that some critics cite as the reason why they get maybe 4 stars or something. You know, it's okay, but I think it's still great. Anyway, but they appear on that track, and Little by Little. Gene Pitney also had a side note with the Rolling Stones because they wrote That Girl Belongs to Yesterday, which was a British hit, a big British hit, but it only went like top 50 here. Didn't do very well. But just a side note. So one of the first Jagger Richards compositions written outside the group, kind of like the Beatles did with World Without Love and some other Peter Gordon hits. But anyway, so this album, we'll take the tracks one by one and not fade away. Like I said, the Buddy Holly track, incredible bluesy treatment. One of the greatest cover versions of a Buddy Holly track I could ever, one of the greatest cover versions, period, because it has an earthy feel to it. It's like, wow, this vitality that is incredible. So that works fantastic. He made me breakfast. Okay, he's a good friend. Thank you, friend. He made me breakfast. Oh, man, he made me breakfast. Hey, dude, hang on. Hey, I'll be right back. All right, cool. All right, cool. Here we go again. All right, now we'll go through the tracks. All right, cool. But anyway, Not Fade Away, like I said, fantastic version. One of the best versions ever done. The desperation, not even desperation, the realness, like, you know, that I am not going to let you take advantage of me. I mean, you know, it's got to be real or I don't want it. That's an incredible track. And then you've got Route 66. I think it was written by Bobby Troop or something like that. But that was a really cool. I think Nat King Cole had a hit with it first. Really cool. Classic number, man. American As You're Gonna Be. You know, I think it's really hardcore blues with I Just Want to Make Love to You, which is the Muddy Waters, which actually it's Willie Dixon that wrote it, and Muddy Waters did it. These guys, the fact that they even dare, I mean, the audacity of youth, you know. Another thing, too, these guys popularized blues music. A lot of these guys were not known, certainly not in England, but even America, they weren't known. I mean, there was a lot of stuff like that going on. You know, I mean, you had Leadbelly and stuff like that, but yeah, a lot of these blues guys, they weren't known, and they didn't really become really popular until after they had gone, or maybe when they're much older. You know, the fact that Mick Jagger could even follow in the steps of Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon, and he does, and he nails it. Whoa, kudos to him for that. And then another one, man, Jimmy Reed? Jimmy Reed, man. Honest I Do. Again, killer vocal, very subtly done. Man, just killer track. Again, then we go to Now Getting a Witness, which is kind of like the throwaway, but still cool. It's kind of like jazz. They let everybody take a little solo. It's a good introduction to the band. It's a nice breather, you know, and then sets it up for Little by Little, which is I think an underrated track of theirs. I love Little by Little. And then you start side 2 with I'm a King Bee, Slim Harpo, man. I freaking love Slim Harpo. But I'm a King Bee, man. That's a little naughty because, you know, buzz around your hive when your man is gone. He's like really trying to tempt this guy's girl. So it's got I said, man, that's you know, that's really morally sedated, man. But that kind of stuff is going on. That's real life, you know. And he's not excusing it. He's not saying it's okay. He's just saying, I want your girl. But Jagger does an incredible job in that. And Brian Jones, man, you know, killer. Oh, then we start rocking with Keith Richards on Carol, the Chuck Berry number. And man, this is, you could just see it take off. So great, awesome cover version, kicks ass, amazing. And then you got Tell Me, which is really, again, the highlight of the album, I think, as far as their songwriting. But, man, killer track. I totally appreciate that track. Amazing. Then Can I Get a Witness, the Marvin Gaye number. I think Holland Dozier Holland did that. Again, that early in the morning, that just kills me when he does that, man. He sounds so like he's in the kind of in the fields hollering, man. You know, the old blues fields, man. Because blues got started, a lot of it from the cotton fields, the field hollers. So they took, you know, to incorporate that kind of that hardcore stuff, and even the gospel again, because you can't have the blues without the gospel, man, because they go together. You know, blues you might be singing about your girl, but gospel you're singing about your Lord, and you can't get away from that. You know, that's hardcore, man. So, and you really, honestly, you cannot understand really American music unless you understand blues, gospel. You have country, you have jazz, even American classical music. Aaron Copland, people like that. You know, don't limit yourself to things. You know, never limit yourself. Right now, me and Dave are doing metal and stuff. I'm not a metalhead, so I'm learning a lot of stuff. And there's some really good groups out there. But never forget where things came from. You know, always remember your history. Mm-hmm. You like the Stones, don't you, man? Yes, you do. Like the Catnip too. I know you. Can I Get a Witness? Amazing, amazing track from Mick Jagger. And then You Can Make It If You Try. Not sure who did that. Gene Allison did that track. You Can Make It If You Try. Really nice. Again, kind of like understated. Mick Jagger, great vocal, controlled, really nicely done, man. I like that track a lot too. And then Walking the Dog, Rufus Thomas, man, with Brian Jones whistling, and then man, these cats, man, they know how to put together a record. This is almost like, you know what? I always talk about the Blues Brothers, but the thing they share with this and these guys is that they were really hardcore blues enthusiasts. I mean, they really did. And Mick Jagger defended them, said, "You need to look at our record collection. This is what we listen to. This is what we love." So, and you get that passion from the Blues Brothers, from John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, especially the Briefcase for the Blues album, which I love that album. It's a great introduction to blues and R&B music. And this is too. This is a fantastic introduction. Remember, there was no one making this stuff at the time. Nobody knew probably half this stuff, if that. So the fact for these guys from England to make this album, to make it hardcore and no compromise, and this is almost a concept album, because remember, their 2-3 singles that they had were kind of poppy. There's nothing poppy on this. I mean, you know, there isn't. This is hardcore blues, and this is the way they wanted. This is the way Brian Jones wanted their band to continue. Now, of course, because Keith Richards and Mick Jagger became fantastic, incredible songwriters, it kind of pushed Brian Jones to the side a little bit. But this is kind of album Brian Jones always wanted to make. And if the Stones had continued under his auspices, I think he would still be creating extremely incredible albums like this. As it was, he did develop, they did do some cool stuff. And by the time of Aftermath, they were taking blues to a whole different direction. And incredible. But unfortunately, Brian Jones kind of got eclipsed more and more and more. And then the Keith Richards, Anita Pallenberg thing didn't really help, because he kind of basically, not steal his girlfriend, but his girlfriend, kind of like with Joey Ramone and Johnny Ramone kind of thing. You can't help who you fall in love with. Some people are just not into you. And if they find someone who really is, and unfortunately it's a member of your own band, that can cause some trouble. Just saying. But the bottom line is that they were a full-blooded Brian Jones unit this time, and they were incredible. And this album is definitely a 5-star masterpiece. You have to have it in your collection. There's no doubt about it. This is where a lot of rock and roll began, with this sound. And with Keith Richards, it's just, gosh, man, amazing guy. These guys are vicious in their youth. They got vicious in old age. They might get a little more professional, but they still love this music. This is what they do, and they're good at it. But anyway, so, hey, there you go. Really cool album, man. But anyway, really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Hope you enjoy the videos. Let me know what you think about the Rolling Stones first album, man. What you know about the Stones. What's your favorite Stones album, man? Mine has always been Exile. That's my favorite, but this is damn good. I'm not complaining at all about this. You need to have this. Pretty much everything of the Stones you need to have, at least up through Exile. I think Stand Up Majesties is a quirky little album. Crazy album. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Love each other. Like I always said, love goes a long way. Love and kindness, more so than money and politics. Always remember that. God bless you. Bye.